Hi viewers, welcome back to Sahara TV. My name is Adeola Fayehun. And of course, as you guys are aware, this is Women's International Month, International Women's Month, and today to talk about the progress of African women. With me in the studio today, I have a guest who is a poet, a playwright, a screenwriter, a copywriter, and an editor. She is everything. I have Nana Brew-Hammond, who graduated cum laude from Versa College. She attended secondary school in Ghana, and she has completed her first novel, Powder Necklace, which is loosely based on her experience in Ghana. Miss Nana, welcome to Sahara TV.
Thank you.
It's so good to have you.
Good to be here.
And just so our viewers know, you're actually working on your second novel right now?
I am actually, it's completed, but yes, you can always keep working, yes.
And when is it coming out, and what's the title?
It's called tentatively Maids and Mothers, so we will see. We'll see what it ends up being called officially.
Okay, and this will be based on how African maids, on African maids in Africa, and how maids are treated and why some people become maids. But you know, this is International Women's Month, and we're trying to, you know, just talk a bit about where you think African women are today. I mean, looking back from the last 50 years, what do you think?
You know, I think that's such a big question, and I think that all over the continent, I think that women are experiencing different things. When you talk about class is a big issue, because I think that sort of women who have a little bit more money and more education have a different experience than, you know, the younger women who are maybe being, you know, coerced or into marriage or feel that that's their only option. I can give an example of my experience in Ghana that I've seen over time as I've grown older. One of the things that has always struck me is that you don't often see, in Ghana anyway, you don't often see a lot of women outside after a certain time at night. I mean, women do definitely hang out, but it's not the way, you know, you're in New York and, you know, there's a bustling nightlife and you see lots of women out. I didn't really see that. And I started to see that it was usually either, you know, married men, single women, and there's this sort of interesting dynamic where the married women kind of stay indoors. And that's been my experience. And to me, it's telling, because there's this certain idea of where women should be or what women should be doing if they're, you know, if they're married women. But then, you know, as I mentioned, it's such a big question, so much to tackle, because, you know, you talk about, you know, prostitution, for example, which again, I'm speaking about Ghana, but, you know, there's that issue and then there's the issue of, you know, underage girls being coerced into marriage. So it's such a meaty question. I think overall, you know, there's no easy answer to that question. I think overall, you know, there's some things that I think are amazing. You know, I think that when you think of the power of, you know, in Ghana, for example, the market woman, you know, they are such a powerful voting bloc. But then at the same time, you go to the market and the market's conditions are not the best. So you wonder, okay, yes, they've got this power, but how is it being used?
I guess, you know, to make the question easier, let's talk first about maybe some of the progress that we've made. Let's talk about African women in literature. I mean, you are an icon, I should say. You're a writer, an editor, a poet, and everything. You know, African women, I think about people like Chimamanda Adichie, and, you know, do you mind talking a bit about how we have progressed when it comes to African women actually voicing their opinion in terms of writing novels and plays? And
Definitely. I mean, I think that, you know, I should start by saying that when I talk about African, I am speaking about African Americans, Afro-Latinos, Caribbeans, because I think that, you know, and Africans in Europe and Asia, because I think that we're all one people, no matter how distant our relationship is to the origin. But absolutely, I think that, you know, when you look at, you know, writers that, you know, came before me, my time, like, you know, Amata Edu, Buchi Emecheta, Toni Morrison, I mean, they were and remain huge giants, you know, in terms of African literature, and just giving voice to not only what was happening on the continent, but what was happening in that sort of collision between, European culture, colonial powers, American culture, and African culture. So, I mean, I think that's huge. And when you talk about someone like Toni Morrison, for example, she's an amazing example of a woman whose own work was prolific and powerful in the sense that, she really explored identity, Black identity, from so many different angles with her books. But then as an editor, she was incredibly powerful and instrumental in breaking the careers of so many other Black women authors. So, I mean, I think that, there's so many sides to it. There's a whole ecosystem in publishing. That's, the agent and, the publicist. And there's a growing group of African women that are, really helping break, new talent. Yeah. Now, when we talk, I'm sorry to keep on rambling, but okay. When we talk about someone like Chimamanda Adichie, it's huge. I mean, she just won the National Book Critics Circle Award. And, she's been so well received. And when Beyonce sampled her
and they're making her book into a movie in Hollywood.
I know. So I mean, things like that are so exciting. And I love that her movie is coming out right after the Oscars, where Chiwetel Ejiofor got so much, worldwide attention for his work, because I feel like he's been such an unsung talent. So I think that this is just such an amazing time for her and for all of us that are working, as writers.
Right. And what I love most about Chimamanda's work is that she actually was able to paint something that happened in history that a lot of people are actually, they're already forgetting about what actually happened. It's like so many Igbo parents actually confess that they didn't know how to explain exactly what happened to their children. But when that book came out, it opened this huge conversation, among parents and their children about Nigeria's history. So it's great that that came from a woman. It was a woman that was able to explain to us vividly what actually happened. But let's talk a bit about African women in politics. How have we evolved?
I mean, I think, well, first of all, when you have someone like Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, I mean, that's huge. There's so many examples of powerful women. And the
president of, it's not Uganda, Malawi. Joyce Banda.
Yes, that's right, that's right. And and then you look at, in South Africa, Winnie Mandela, people don't talk about what a force that she was. I mean, just even legally, like her mandating that, 50% of, representation come from women. I mean, that's huge in South Africa. So, I think that there's definitely, I think African women have always been strong. That archetype of the strong African woman is there for a reason. And I think that what we're seeing now is more and more of them sort of coming into their own in really, high profile, powerful leadership positions. And I think that the test will be, what will come of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And another thing that these women are doing, they may not know it, is that they're actually inspiring other women, younger women, like what Chimamanda did. Some young female writers now are like, I can do that too. With 2 women being president in Africa, some African women in politics now are probably like, you know what, maybe we can have a female president in our country too. So they are inspiring us. And who are the people that have inspired you?
In terms of writers, gosh, there are so many. I mean, Chimamanda Adichie is
we keep talking about her.
No, Chimamanda is
she
definitely... She didn't pay for this interview.
No, she did not. Disclaimer.
She's definitely one of them. Amata Edu is a huge one for me. Buchi Emecheta is one of my favorites. Oh gosh, and then there's so many names on the scene that I'm yet to read their work.
You can keep going on and on about that, but briefly I want us to talk about some things that are still hindering the progress of African women on the African continent. And let's talk a bit about underage marriage. You've been talking about that actually.
I mean, it's funny because, like I said, I think that when you're in a different class, you don't often experience certain things. But, you know, I was shocked to find out that, you know, that was such a big issue and continues to be a big issue.
And it's still going on.
Yeah, it continues to be. When I was just in Ghana in August, you know, there were laws being put into place to really kind of protect young girls, and it sparked a conversation, you know, amidst myself and some family members, because I was shocked that, you know, this was even an issue still, and it is, and you know, these are the things, and you know, I was just watching some news program or other, and it was saying that a lot of the policies that we put in place to, you know, help women and help you know, change poverty, you know, on our continent, a lot of them can be eradicated just by like shoring up educational initiatives for women, because the more a woman is educated, you know, she'll have less children. She'll be in a better position, you know, financially to take care of herself.
And her family.
Exactly. And I think that that's where, I mean, obviously we do need to address these issues of underage marriage, but I think that's where we really need to be focusing on, really educate these young girls, make education, you know, mandatory.
And you know, while we're educating the girls as well, the sad thing is that some of those people that are putting these policies together are men.
Oh yeah.
Not women.
Oh yeah.
Like in Nigeria, there was a huge story about underage marriage not long ago, where the Senate was discussing about underage marriage, and there wasn't a woman among the people that were talking about this. So it's like, how do you speak for me when you're not in my skin? So that's another issue we should keep in mind while we're educating the women. We need more women representatives.
That's absolutely the case. I mean, we definitely need
and,
equal
you know,
representation.
speaking of, equal representation, that leads to my next question, the affirmative action. What do you think about, you know, women advocating to have equal representation in government? Because some people have complained that even when we leave certain posts out for women, we still don't have enough women to fill this post. Should this be about just making sure we have 40 women, 60 men, or should this be about who can do the job?
You know, that's a tricky question, because I think that, you know, when you're speaking sort of idealistically, it should be about the people who can do the job. But I think that implicit in that statement is that there are women who cannot do the job. And I think that that has been sort of the hindrance from the beginning, and which is why we're not seeing, you know, high numbers of women enrolling in politics, getting active and getting involved. And so I think that from the beginning, we need to let young people know that this is young women know that this is an option for them. This is something, you know, and the power of, you know, representing yourself. So I think that, you know, again, it goes back to education. Once that becomes a possibility, you know, then you're gonna see, you know, representative numbers shooting for that. But yeah, I think it's, you know, I think until we get there, I think we do need to implement, you know, some sort of affirmative action policies, because it's important. I think that, you know, again, when we're starting idealistically, you know, you want to say that, oh, you know, it's whoever is qualified to do it, and but you know, girls are qualified. I think we just need to open that up to them, let them know it's a possibility.
And when they are being told that they can do it, they will be able to do it.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, so I want to talk a bit about trokosi. Just to know if it's still going on. By the way, this is a practice in Ghana. Do you mind telling us what it's about?
Okay, so I am not 100% familiar with trokosi, but from what I've heard, it's, you know, young girls who are virgins who are sort of being sacrificed, and you know, to atone for maybe the sins of some man. Okay,
so from what I heard, which is the same, if some guy, if he has done something stupid and he has angered the gods, then they will bring a virgin girl to appease the gods. Why not the guy?
Yeah.
Is this still going on?
I mean, I've heard things, you know, I've never, you know, I don't have any personal experience with it, but I've definitely heard that it exists. You know, these are the kinds of things that are, you know,
pulling us back.
It is, but it is definitely, but I think that it's difficult to it's difficult to get a grasp on them, because a lot of these things are happening. They're not happening in the open. You know, no one's going to announce that, oh, I'm sacrificing this virgin girl. These are happening. You know, so how do we you know, first of all, how do we educate the people so that, you know, they get to the place on their own where they're like, you know, this doesn't make sense. Why are we doing this? And how do we institute policies that, you know, respect whatever tradition is behind this, but move us forward so that we're not stuck in a place where we're killing people.
And this is not just happening in Ghana; it happens in different parts of Africa. I mean, there's also female genital mutilation and all that. But just to round up, because we only have 1 more minute left, I want to talk about women in fashion, because I know you are a fashionista, and you know how we've evolved. And while you're talking about that, what do you think about Lupita Nyong'o?
Oh my goodness, who doesn't love Lupita Nyong'o right now?
Exactly.
She is incredible. She's amazing. And what's so lovely about her is that she's just, I don't know, she just, as a young woman, as a, you know, a dark-skinned woman who grew up in the States, it was so hard to, you know, see myself mirrored in television and fashion. I mean, you know, I grew up, you know, in the 90s, Alek Wek was becoming popular, Kiara Kabukuru, Naomi Campbell, etc. But to see a woman like Lupita Nyong'o in film, you know, it's like we have our leading lady for, you know, all of these roles and all of these stories.
Exactly.
So she's wonderful, and I wish her all the best. And it's exciting too, because, you know, there is a younger generation that, you know, is still dealing with these issues of colorism, and to have someone like her out there, you know, winning Oscars, slaying it on the red carpet, you know, just is a good thing.
It's a huge testimony. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone who went like that from just one movie, you know, so that's a huge inspiration.
Yeah, it is. And you know, the thing is about Lupita is that, yes, she is an overnight sensation, but she worked really hard.
She's been working hard for a long time.
Exactly.
Nobody knew who she was.
Yeah, and no one's really talking about that. So that's what's so exciting too, that, you know, it can happen, it will happen. You just kind of have to persevere.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on Sahara TV today.
Thank you for having me.
Enjoyed having you. I hope you guys have enjoyed our time with Nana. So stay tuned. We have more to come. But before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our live stream channel so you can get emails whenever we are live on live stream. And of course, we have our shows, our regulars, Dr. Damages and Keeping It Real. And we have a Skype segment coming up with Rudolph Okonkwo. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thank you for coming in the studio.